Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome. In this video, we're going to be looking at the question of a person marrying two women in a single contract where he's allowed to marry one and he's not allowed to marry the other one. And the answer that we're trying to understand here is that is it invalid for both or is it only invalid for one? So the way to understand this is through a sound principle that we have. We won't go into too much detail, but the principle is very, very simple. When you have something that's fasid, something that's defective in a contract in nikah, not in other transactions, but when you have something that's defective in a nikah contract, that does not necessarily make the nikah fasid. Okay, as long as you can remove the invalid element, it's fine. If you were to compare this to bay, so in bay, buying and selling, if you have something that's fasid, it makes the contract fasid. Okay, so that's the critical difference between the two here. When we get to buyu, inshallah ta'ala, finance, we'll discuss it more in detail, but the Sheikh Imam Marghinani wants to show us that today. So read through that today. وَمَنْ تَزَوَّجَ, whoever marries two women, فِي أُقْدَةٍ وَاحِدَةٍ, in a single contract. Okay, and for one of them, وَإِحْدَاهُمَا لَا يَحِلُّ لَهُ نِكَاحُهَا, for one of them, it's not permitted for him to marry her. He's not allowed to marry her from the muharramat that we've been talking about. But the other one, of course, he's allowed to marry. صح نكاح التي حل نكاحها. The one that he is allowed to marry, that nikah will be done. So two women, one he is allowed to marry, one he's not allowed. This one is perfectly fine. This one will be valid. Right, and for the other one, the nikah is batil. This comes in Quduri. It's very, very important mas'ala. And we say that لأن المبتلى في إحداهما, that the butlan, the invalidness, is in this one. It's only in one of the women, not in this one. So in this case, it's in this woman. Yeah. And so we can separate it out. We can separate them both out and we can continue with the nikah, because a fasid one doesn't, something that's fasid, this is a fasad in the nikah, based on our principle that we just discussed here, does not make the whole contract fasid as long as you remove the fasad element. And then he gives a contrast, which is to the nikah one. So in the case of nikah, he says, بخلاف ما إذا جمع بين حر وعبد في البيع. But say he sells something to you, and in the package you have to have a free person, right? You can't buy and sell a free person. He says with that free person, if you want to buy the slave, there's a slave here and there's a free person, you have to get them as a package. Now that's a fasid contract in buyu, right? You can't do that. لأنه يبطل بالشروط الفاسدة وقبول العقد في الحر شرط فيه. So he's made a condition that you have to buy the free person with it. That's fasid. The whole thing falls apart. So we've stayed consistent to this universal principle that we have, and this principle will apply in nikah and in buyu respectively. So you need to know the farq between them. And then he just ends and he says, what about the mahr in this case? ثم جميع المسمى عند أبي حنيفة للتي تحل. So Imam Abu Hanifa says that whatever the mahr was said, all of it will go to this woman. So if he was to say £100, right, all of the £100, it would not be 50-50, for example, it would go all to her. According to his students, Imam Muhammad and Imam Abu Yusuf, rahimahullah ta'ala, يُقْسَمُ عَلَى مِهْرِ مِثْلِيهَا. What you will do is you will do what's called a meher misli. So you will find out what the meher is equivalent for that particular woman, for this woman here, and you will give it to her. Okay, and this mas'ala is mentioned in the asl, which will come to maybe in the future, bi'iznillahi ta'ala. Hope that's been useful, very, very useful, just to kind of get the principle out. It teases out this principle, because until now we've been talking about fasid in nikah, and we've been talking about what makes it invalid. We talked about Imam Zufar's position. So here Imam Marghina is building on the previous case, in the previous video, and saying what is it unique about fasad in nikah. Okay, hope you find that useful. Any comments, let me know. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.